A federal judge is telling the Trump regime to shut up. Stop making prejudicial statements about Abrego Garcia. It is violative of the local rules and just the ethical obligations of a lawyer. Defense attorneys for Abrego Garcia in the criminal proceedings in the Middle District of Tennessee went to the federal judge, Judge Waverly Crenshaw Jr., and said, Judge, the Trump regime, whether it's the Attorney General Pam Bondi, or they said the Yale-educated J.D. Vance, who went to Yale Law School, who should know better, are out there saying not just prejudicial things about Abrego Garcia, but just lies as well. They're saying crimes he's not even being accused of, and they keep on going on Fox. You have to get them to shut up. Issue kind of the standard local rules order that reminds them of their ethical obligations, that you're going to hold the lawyers accountable if the Trump regime continues to do that, and order them to stop doing it. The judge granted that. The judge granted that counsel are expected to comply with the local rules of this court in a motion and memorandum of law in support of the issuance of an order requiring compliance with Local Criminal 2.01, which basically is a canon that we all know about not causing prejudicial statements to be made that could impact the way a jury deliberates or interferes with the proceedings. Here's how Abrego's lawyers put it. They do a good job here. You've got a good legal team. For months, the government has made extensive and inflammatory extrajudicial comments about Mr. Abrego that are likely to prejudice his right to a fair trial. These comments continued unabated. If anything, they ramped up since his indictment in this district, making clear the government's intent to engage in trial by newspaper. As Mr. Abrego's plight captured national attention, officials occupying the highest positions of the United States government baselessly labeled him a gangbanger, monster, illegal predator, illegal alien terrorist, wife beater, barbarian, and human trafficker. The vice president, a Yale Law School graduate, went so far as to flatly lie about Mr. Abrego, calling him a convicted MS-13 gang member, notwithstanding that Abrego, in fact, has never been convicted of any crime at all. You all will remember what Pam Bondi said. Let's play that clip of Bondi.
In that, human trafficking, not only in our country, but in our world, is very, very real. It's very dangerous. And as you saw recently in Virginia, the arrest we made of the MS-13 member, unrelated to this, we learned at that press conference, that's where they bring young children into our country and they start grooming them at middle school age to become MS-13 full-fledged members, commit violent crimes throughout our country. It is highly organized. It is very dangerous. And they are living throughout our country, but no more, because they are being arrested, they are being prosecuted, and being convicted and deported when appropriate. That's all for today. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Harry, you were a top official at the Department of Justice. You were the top federal prosecutor in the Western District of Pennsylvania. I mean, what she did there and what they're doing, it's the most basic kind of ethical canon that they violate. Their rules of professional responsibility, every aspect of it. It's just a walking, talking violation. Break it down. How important is this ruling? What do you think is going to happen?
Look, it is a second nature understanding for any especially top person in the office, and this is the most flagrant violation of it I've ever seen, and that it was the Attorney General makes it worse. It makes it worse like nominally, but it also makes it worse under the law. You didn't even show some of the worst stuff. She said, apropos of nothing, he was doing $100,000 a year and he didn't have a real job. And here's the sexual assaults that were all completely outside the four corners of the indictment, maybe totally concocted. She said the grand jury found, and it's not in the indictment. Grand juries don't make auxiliary findings to just sort of leave around. And this was when you charge someone, okay, they were totally dirtying him up all they could in the battle, the PR battle, instigated by their own, sending him down accidentally. And that completely inflamed them and made them say all kinds of false stuff about him. Then they charge him in a crime. Constitution, due process, ethical violations, everything kicks in. And I don't know what people wouldn't have heard, these unbelievable characterizations of him, MS-13 member, just top to bottom, completely horrendous. And, as a former, I did a lot of press conferences like this, and you stick to the four corners and you say alleged, and I never seen anything close. It made me want to retch. In terms of, and that's just that one press conference. So they're totally right. It's the worst case I've ever seen. So, and what did the district court basically said, about as gentle as it could be, would you please comply with the goddamn rules, United States, and stop this now? The weird thing that's happening, Ben, this is part and parcel of the overall, what seems to be a plan by the U.S. after they brought him back and said it was so important and these were serious charges and he must face American justice first. I think they're now looking to just smother that, not have it come to light, not see what seems to be a very weak case, and instead take them the deportation route. And that would make these violations probably moot or go away, because what they really aim at is polluting the jury pool, which you bet they are doing. So now it's kind of caught up in what's happening to this case. Does Abrego have some ability to try to say, as he's saying in two different courts now, you've charged me, let me face criminal justice, let the U.S. make its case. Remember, the Supreme Court said, put me back in the same position I would have been in if you didn't make that mistake. But I think the mindset of the DOJ, they'll stop, at least within the jurisdiction, saying these were totally incendiary and improper things. But I think they're focused on a different pipeline to beat him and get rid of him and defeat this whole what's been a PR nightmare for them. But I was stunned to see how completely not she had dirtied him up inappropriately. I've never seen anything like it, and from the Attorney General. Yeah,
talk about the script being flipped, where a criminal defendant is saying, please prosecute me.
Right.
Prosecute me. Please give me a jury. Let me be prosecuted. I really, versus, don't prosecute me. I want give me due process, and I will win, because you're making all of this stuff up. There's another issue, right? Because Pam Bondi used to be a Fox host, as all of these Trump regime people are. The regime, I call Fox state regime media, because it's inextricably intertwined, in my view, with the regime. So, they'll have somebody just on a totally other topic, like they had on Wednesday night when there was coverage on the disastrous budget bill. Like, they'll have a guest who gets their talking points from people like a Bondi. They'll start talking about the bill, and then they'll be like, but the Democrats, they support Abrego, who kills Americans. He's a murderer and he's killing Americans. And Fox is doing that also to pollute the jury pool and to get this out. Here's just someone baselessly saying Abrego has killed Americans. Here, watch this.
Might be leaving out.
Yeah, well, I just think it's interesting that all of a sudden people voted for Thomas Massie. Like, I don't remember voting for Thomas Massie with this. I remember voting for Donald Trump to get this bill passed. And I feel like a lot of Americans who voted for Donald Trump feel the same way, especially not only with Thomas Massie, but a lot of the other Republicans who are kind of leaning towards no. They didn't vote for these Congress people. They voted for President Trump. They voted for this mandate. And if you're going to vote no on this, then you're voting along with Democrats, especially Democrats like Maxine Dexter, who was on the Hill today dressed in a white robe, who also visited El Salvador to go see Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who killed Americans. This is something that a lot of people are passionate about passing. If you're not siding with Republicans, then unfortunately you're siding with Democrats, anti-American.
You hear her say that, and then they just move on. There's no fact check. No, what are you talking about? So there's ways now the Trump regime even tries to get around it, because there's no distinction between them and Fox, at this point. So what happens when Hannity says it, or when Laura Ingraham says it? But Harry, I'll give you the final word here.
Thanks, man. Yeah. We know what should happen. They just defamed him. It's straight out defamation. They, in their indictment, there's charges, I think, of, well, all kinds of things could grow out of the indictment. They did all the ethical violations at the stage of the charging. That's one reason. There are, I think, two things going on for their moving into this deportation lane. And I write about it actually in the Substack today. One is just sheer malice. It's so immature, right? You have the whole executive branch and it's personal. They want to win against this guy who did the great sin of being mistakenly sent down there, and they've trained everything against him. That's one. And then two, I think there's a secondary agenda of getting this, what would be a terrible eyesore with all kinds of improper behavior. And I'm talking including from when he first went down to El Salvador. If they deport him, that sort of all goes away. There's no basis anymore for bringing it up, much less for him to bring claims like claims that he might have for being sent down there, defamation against Fox and the like. He's been just legally, physically, equitably, screwed top to bottom, living a complete Kafkaesque nightmare. And really, what did he do wrong? He was on the street one day and somebody picked him up falsely. And that's what's really brought all this hell down on him since. It's on top of all the legal stuff, the indecency, the lack of contrition on the administration's part to have done this basic mistake and trying to double down at every turn to make it somehow a victory for Donald Trump and by demonizing this guy. It's really tawdry as well as unethical and unlawful.
Harry Litman, the Talking Feds YouTube channel. Everybody subscribe to Talking Feds YouTube channel and the Talking Feds Substack and the Talking Feds podcast. That's where I get my legal news from. Thanks, Harry.
Thank you, Ben.
Love this video? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch and help us blow past 1 million followers.